clear water carries us on Hudson River waters. She hauls a mighty cargo in her hold.
Well, the Hudson River is the defining feature of this area. I mean, it is the Hudson Valley, and it occupies a good part of eastern New York State. It's been important as a pantry, providing food, as a commercial highway for sloops, tugs, barges, ships, as an avenue of trade, as a route for tourists to come visit the valley, originally on the sloops, later on the steamboats.
The Hudson River is underrated as the roots of modern environmentalism. We say it on the Hudson River. We're the birthplace of American environmentalism. But there's a style of environmentalism that came out of the Hudson River that was not happening on any other waterway in the country. I know this because I spent a lot of years when I was riverkeeper traveling to other waterways and learned their history.
There are a couple of things that I love about the Hudson. One is it's a very dynamic system. And every time you go to look at it or you go to experience it, you see something different. So that's always exciting, to be in a dynamic landscape. I love thinking about it as a migratory route for millions of animals. I love visualizing that the fish are coming into the river, the fish are leaving the river. I think that's really exciting. And then I love sharing it with people who are new to this area and showing them the places that are wonderful to visit because it's so beautiful.
You know, the 60s really started, the environmental groups in the Hudson started in the 60s. Scenic Hudson started around 1964. It was had a slightly different name in those days. Clearwater was founded in 1966. Had a different name in those days also. Riverkeeper was founded in 66. It had a different name. You know, people were at that time beginning to really speak up.
So here's to you, clear water, for the vision that you bring. Let's clean up the Hudson River, make it strong again.
You ask, how did I come to the Hudson Valley? I like to say, on the Clearwater.
So I went down to the waterfront and Pete Seeger was on board. Stood on the bow of the boat and he said, "You see this dock?" And he pointed to the ferry dock. He said, "I need a group of volunteers who will help me rebuild this dock."
This year marks the 50th anniversary of the sloops launching.
Well, Pete Seeger and his wife Toshi Seeger were the best voices for protecting the Hudson River. Pete and Toshi established Hudson River Clearwater 50 years ago. And they just had this incredibly unique way about them where they built the foundation of Clearwater, which was protecting the Hudson River, celebrating the Hudson River, and standing up for the Hudson River through advocacy.
And it's not just going out on the boat. There's a regular program on the boat that involves education, it involves doing, it involves hands-on, raising the sail, steering the boat, trawling to bring up fish. And for most of these children or adults, they ask the same questions. For most of them, they've never been on a boat. They've never seen the river up close. And so in and of itself, that's an important lesson to make the connection between their own environment and the river environment. And so many times it's a community that brings us together.
Water quality is the most dramatic change. As a policy person, you know, I have to point to the fact that the Clean Water Act is really what is responsible for that wonderful law that was put in place by Richard Nixon in 1970. So on three fronts, it's had a huge impact in terms of, first of all, sewage treatment. The second is the policies and regulations associated with discharges of pollutants, other kinds of pollutants. And we still have a lot of discharges into the river, but they are regulated. And the third thing I would say is the Clean Water Act is responsible for protection of wetlands, which are, like the most productive ecosystems in the world, and yet people were using them as places to either create more land or to dump unwanted things. So the protection of our wetlands has also contributed to the health of the river. So those three things have been successful on the Hudson.
And what was happening in those days is that a barge going to Albany to offload oil or fuel would come back down the river, and they would clean their tanks coming down the river and then discharge it right into the river. And then the others evolved in terms of, like Clearwater, was how do you get people down to the river to care? That was Pete Seeger's basic concept. How do you get people to care?
Throughout my career, I've worked for clean water, and I've always have had Hudson River front and center in terms of a reminder of when you have strong environmental laws like the Clean Water Act and you have them enforced, you can see measurable improvements in water quality, and people flock to the river. I think the real sad part of the history of the Hudson is General Electric's PCBs essentially have closed the commercial fishery on the Hudson because of high levels of PCBs in the fish.
My vision of the river is that any kid can go down to the water and catch a fish for the family table. That means there has to be access for that kid to get to the water. That means there has to be fish for that kid to catch. That means there has to be a lot less pollution than there is now, so that fish is safe to eat. It's a very, very big picture for a very simple idea. And that's still my hope, my vision for the future, that that day is going to come, that any kid can go down to the river and catch a fish for the family table.
2010 was the first year in probably ever that somebody banned shad fishing on the river. So plenty of Native Americans had been coming there for thousands of years to get shad. And because of what we have done to the river, we made it, or to the species, right. Theoretically it's overfishing.
That's a real heartbreak, because we could have a really good infrastructure initiative that would create jobs and improve water quality.
I actually feel so grateful to live in a place where there's a high degree of environmental consciousness.
One of the most bright lights in Yonkers is happening on the river waterfront. They're rebuilding the waterfront. People are going there. There's restaurants there. The science barge is at the waterfront. The Bezak Center is on the waterfront. The daylighting of the Sawmill River is one of the most beautiful restoration projects in a coastal city anywhere in the United States.
I think that people should go out and experience the river for their own gratification, because that will make them better advocates. If you don't get out there and you don't know it, then you can't advocate for it. Volunteering is a good thing to do. And then if that's something that you can't do for one reason or another, you can have the satisfaction of supporting an organization that does those things. And all our organizations, and we have some really terrific ones here in the Hudson Valley, they all need support.
People is one important thing about the Hudson River. The Hudson River is a river of people as much as it is a river of fish. And what people have made possible here has kept my faith in human beings quite alive.
And a mission for the future. With time and tide, our river's fortune will be told. Tack, jibe, haul, tell the story with your sails. Hudson River sloops are proud and tall. Tack, jibe, haul, clear water, ply your trade, and save the mighty Hudson for us all. Sailing down the Hudson River, port to port she travels, with river lore and science as her friends. Folks young and old come sailing and they learn the river's story.